1968 Packard Bell 1-year update. This set was new old stock basically when it was put into service on 10/1/22, and today is 10/10/23. So it's been a daily user, daily driver for 375 days. This is going to be basically an analytical numbers video. We have an hour meter in the set. We're going to look at the hours, figure out what problems happened when. We're going to test the picture tube. We'll see how many watts it's consumed. We're just going to go over a bunch of numbers, whiteboard, spreadsheet type stuff. No real problem with the set right now. The focus might be getting a little soft. See, it gets a little blurry when the contrast gets cranked up. Hope they can't figure out this music video without the audio. So let's see. In 375 days, we have accumulated 5,385 hours. So we'll go through like I said, all the repairs, at what hours, what amount of time, whether I think they were due to the age or due to just a failure that would have happened when the set was new. So let's get into numbers, and then we'll check the CRT and compare it at multiple voltages on the same tester that I used to check it out a year ago. When it comes to figuring out the electricity, I'm sure I'm going to get all kinds of static about being in California. Well, you know what? This is coming to wherever you live, too. Once the green agenda gets wider and the WEF kicks in, everybody's going to be this. I'm not even going to try and figure this out, because basically we have time of day billing, and we have tiered billing. It is just the most complex thing. I think the simplest way to do this would just be to divide 141 kilowatts by $48.90. And then, I don't know, what would that be? 30 cents per kilowatt? I don't know, figure it out. Okay, let's go over the statistics on the 1968 Packard Bell. Its first year in service. This project is not over. We're still running. And we're just continuing on into year number 2. So at the beginning of this, I added a cathode fuse to the horizontal output, basically to protect against if the flyback shorts, or the high voltage rectifier, to protect against fire or destroying the horizontal output tube. So this is the date we started, was 10/1/22. The first fault, the first time I had to open the TV, was 10/30/22 at 439 hours. It was a cathode fuse. So the cathode fuse faults are of my doing. So the next time the cathode fuse blew was at 1,085 hours. Now, I believe what happened is after this, the cathode fuses, the horizontal output tube softened up a little bit. Its draw decreased a little bit, and it quit blowing these fuses. So the first real fault was 3/18/23 at 2,413 hours. We had a few of the original filter capacitors go open. Now, this fault would probably not have happened when the set was new. This is probably due to age. The next fault was at 3/24/23 at 2,538 hours, were the horizontal phase detector diodes. Now, I've talked about these before. They're selenium, they're early selenium diodes, and they fail a lot. At this point, I'm recommending that you change those in any restoration or repair. Okay, the next fault was 5/29/23 at 3,400 hours, 486 hours. The power strip burned up. So this one definitely would not have happened when the set was new. This was not a fault of the set. The horizontal phase detector diodes, I don't know. I kind of think that might be age related a little bit. So the first five definitely are not related to a common failure. Okay, this should make this a little bit easier. So 8/1/23, 4,370 hours, we had the second IF transistor fail. I believe that this is not totally age related. These silicon transistors are not germanium. And with the other Packard Bell sets I've seen, these had been replaced. So I believe this probably would have been a service call in the first or second year this set was new. Now the next failure was right shortly after that, 8/30/23, 4,461 hours. The CRT bias pot flamed out. Carbon tracked inside, went up in smoke, blew the circuit breaker. This is debatable whether this is due to age or not. I don't know. Unless it was tin whiskers or something that caused it, I'm 50-50 whether this would have happened when the set was new. And then our most recent repair video, our last repair video, 9/1/23 at 4,821 hours. The 6T10 audio output audio demodulator tube suffered a mechanical failure. I believe that would have been a service call when the set was new. I don't see how something inside of a vacuum could deteriorate, but what do I know? Okay, now we get into some of our more numbery stuff. Total hours for 375 days, because I was 10 days late from the initial start. 5,800, let's try that again, 5,385 hours. When we started this project, we measured the watt-hour consumption with the kilowatt meter of the set, and it was 250 watts. It was like 246 up and down, somewhere around there. So total consumption of the set over its life so far, 1.346250 megawatts, 1,346,250 watts is what this thing has consumed over the course of the past 375 days. So times 375, divided by 375, the average time the set is on is 14.36 hours a day. Now, the set is being viewed. It's in a room where there's someone who pretty much just works from home, stays at home, kind of has it on in the background and watching it. So this is not just operating in a vacuum kind of thing. It is being used. The channels are being changed all day long. It just kind of runs like if it was in a restaurant or something. So total watts per day, 3,590 watts per day. I rounded everything off. We're paying about 35 cents per kilowatt here. And I know I'm going to get a lot of static about California. You know, there's a lot of green energy and carbon taxes. But you know what? This is coming to where you live shortly if it hasn't already. So how's that saying go? So goes California, goes the way of the rest of the world, or something like that. Anyway, high energy prices are coming to where you live. So I don't need no static about this. So 35 cents a kilowatt, $1.25 a day to operate the set. $470 worth of electricity is what this set used over the course of the past year. A lot of people donated to this project specifically to help with the electricity. Patreon, the little tip jar thing, a lot of people helped out with this. So this is a group effort here. I thought this would be an interesting thing. So based on a gallon of gas equaling 33,000 watts worth of heat. Now we're talking about heat here, not converted energy, running the gas through a generator and converting it to electricity and then all that wasted loss. So based on 33,000 watts per gallon of regular unleaded gasoline, the TV released heat equal to 41 gallons of gas burned, which would yield 820 pounds of carbon dioxide, which these numbers are low because they're based on direct conversion, not taking into account all the losses in generation and transmission and all of that. Plus, these are sort of irrelevant because of the green energy. Also, the TV is adding heat to the house. So in the winter, theoretically, you have to use less heat from other sources to keep the house at a comfortable temperature, on and on and on. So I just thought this was an interesting comparison, because basically this yielded all 100% heat, right? I mean, every watt that goes into that TV ends up as just raw heat into the room. So this amount of power is equal to the heat that would be released by burning 41 gallons of gasoline. So I think I got everything there. I mean, we could break down more stuff on this, but I think we should take a look at the CRT. And we're just going to keep going on this project. And it looks like there's an average fault about every 2 months, something like that. See, real faults would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you take out the faults that I created by my modifications, so basically we had 5 faults over the course of 12 months. So yeah, about 1 fault every 2 months that I believe would have generated about 1 to 2 house calls when the set was new. The rest were caused by age. Okay, let's take a minute out and do what everybody is doing on social media right now in the Los Angeles area. Look at the solar eclipse. Anyway, this is looking at the sun through a welding helmet, welding glass. And yeah, it's kind of blurry in the camera. It's just kind of looks like the moon. And that's looking at it through a welder's helmet. Also, the other thing that's really interesting, shadows are really defined. Look at how defined my shadow is. Not a lot of people would notice that, but if you look at it, this is the helmet right here. It's wild how defined the shadows are. CRT test 1 year later. I'll try and include some of the footage from the previous test. So we started at 6.3 volts. And we started with the cutoff controls all the way up. And when we hit cutoff, okay, so before it pegged all of these, it slammed all of these to the maximum. So that is definitely some loss of something. So let's set the cutoff here. And cutoff is like an aperture. I've explained it before. It's how evenly the cathode material is burned off. I mean, we still got cutoff, but it's no longer virgin. Okay, and prior, all of our tests were upper 1.2 to 1.4. So that doesn't look like that's changed. Now, I tested it next at 4.7 volts on the filament. And when it was new, there was little to no drop off at all. Well, now there's drop off. There's considerable drop off. 1 year ago, when I dropped it to 4.7 volts, the needles did not drop at all. So there's been considerable drop off there. And then I tested it, I believe at 4 volts previously. And now it's just flat dead. So it definitely has lost some emissions. It's almost, looks like it's almost lost a considerable amount. Let's go back up to 4.7 volts and see if we set the cutoff, if it'll even show cutoff. Yeah, it'll just barely show cutoff at 4.7 volts. But it's still considerably weaker at 4.7 volts than it was when it was new. So, you know, the drop-off is not linear. It's not a smooth, as they age, it's not a smooth drop-off like that. It's sort of flat, and then when it hits its end of life, it drops real quick. So I don't think it's at its end of life yet, but yeah, 2 to 3 years probably at this amount of use, and it'll be done flat. For reference, this is the same exact tester that I used a year ago. I did want to take a look at the focus pin while I was in here, because the focus does seem to be getting a little weird. And see that white? It's this single pin here. I wonder if that's why the focus seems a bit wonky, or if it's the selenium rectifier that's in here. Oh, no, this uses a tube. Was it 1V2 or 3V4 or whatever it is? But yeah, the focus is getting a little clinky dinkler. Looks like it uses a 2AV2. So I better start looking for one of those.
This is Yogi's house? Yes. Okay. We also have I Stand With My Pack. Pups Without Borders. If you missed any of this, you guys, just contact me, contact them, and say, hey, I saw this dog.
The focus is not bad right now. I mean, when you crank the... Yeah, when you crank the brightness up, it gets soft as hell. Look at that. The camera doesn't really show it. But anyway, I don't want to saturate this channel too much with just videos on this TV. I got plenty of other stuff to... An endless supply of vintage TVs and radios to repair and resurrect and diagnose and all kinds of stuff. But, I mean, I could, you know. I'm just trying to keep this thing to Sunday right now because it is unreliable. And, yeah, it does need that. It needs that pot that flamed out replaced, because it's starting to get darker. I got it in a dark room now, but yeah, it needs the screens adjusted up. It's at the point now where it needs the screens adjusted up.
And great offers like this one.
Lease the stylish 2023 Kia Forte LXS with payments of just
It's very dark.
Visit us, Car Pros, Kia, Glendale.
Want a flatter, tighter tummy? Then check out new Ab EX from Sono.
Anyway, there's a 1-year update. I hope you learned something. I certainly have, which what I'm learning is that tubes... Ooh, that's a... Oh, yes. Some things should just not be on display, but hey, this is America, and... Oh, yeah, squeeze it. This is America in 2023, and pretty much the more grotesque it is, the more we promote it. So just, I guess, love it, live it. So yeah, what I've learned is that tubes really last much longer than is thought. You know, anytime you talk to someone about vintage gear, they always seem to say, well, where do you get the tubes? How do you get the tubes? You know, are tubes still available? Well, tubes seem to hardly ever go bad. They're very reliable, actually. They last a long time. And over the course of the next couple years, we're going to get an idea of what a high-hour tube is. Well, anyway... 1-year update. The purity's a little bit off.